Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Brick Roll. Alright, I've got a little project I need to do in the backyard. It's been something that's been on my mind for really literally a couple of months, but it's been too hot to do anything about it up until now. We had a little cold front come in last night, and right now it's low 60s, so it's a nice day to be in the yard doing some yard work. And this is going to be a little bit of hard work, so it's a good day to, maybe work up a sweat where I'm not going to be sweating like a pig because it's 100 degrees out here. Let me show you what I need to do. You may recall a few weeks ago I put blue flags all over the yard to mark the location of sprinkler heads so that I could finally get a good accurate mapping of where the sprinkler heads are in the yard. And for the most part, since that's all on the master document now, I have pulled all those flags up, but there are still two of them that are up. This one here in front of Flash's cave, and this one over here in front of one of her backup houses. It turns out, and I guess I knew this a couple months ago, that when I put this cave in place about a year ago, there was actually a sprinkler head buried in there, and I didn't think it would be a problem, but it has become a problem because water's coming out of there now, seeping through the ground, and then ultimately washing soil out of the cave. So I don't think Flash is using this as much as she could because of the fact that there's constantly water coming out of there at night when the sprinkler's on. And so what I need to do is move this thing. I want to just move it a couple of feet this way, and so that the sprinkler head can be uncovered again and begin being used properly at irrigating this part of the yard. I think this will also be another benefit because I put soil on top of this cave here in the hopes that something would kind of take root and grow on it and kind of cover it up, and that would provide more insulation and protection for Flash and stuff like that. But since the sprinkler head was covered up, we aren't getting any good irrigation in this section of the yard, and nothing really ever takes in there. So I think by moving a couple feet to the left here, I think we're going to be able to get some irrigation on top of the cave here, and that should over time result in something growing on top of this on top of the cave here, which, like I said, will enhance the appearance and also maybe provide a little food and a little snack for Flash. So that's what the job is today. I also need to move this one. This one's going to be a lot easier because this one's just a few little pieces, but apparently there's a sprinkler head right there too. So that's the task for today. We're going to move mainly Flash's main cave, but I'm also going to move this one. That's her little wooden box. I'm kind of thinking now she doesn't need to have 4 houses over here within like a 20-foot area, so I may move that one to another part of the yard, and then she can use that over at that location. But the first thing I need to do is take this one apart. Alright, a little time has passed by. I got the thing more or less taken apart at this point. I think that little hole there is probably where the water was coming in. Maybe that hole too, who knows. It seems to me the head is back there, so water tends to find the path of least resistance, but there was water getting into here. It was very clear because this area was covered with sediment and stuff that had been washed out of the ground. So it's coming apart pretty easy. I didn't expect it wouldn't, but we are well on our way. So I got the rest of the cave out of the way, and I have actually found the sprinkler head, and it turns out that that big hole I saw in the dirt when I got the walls out for the cave, that is where the water was coming in, because I thought the head was back there closer to that pipe, but it's about 1.5 feet out here. So that's the first part of it. Now I think now that I know where the head is, I basically want to have the wall of, the right wall of the cave start about, probably between 12 and 18 inches from that, so that, there'll be a little bit of room back there for the head to pop up and spray water up and get it on top of the cave and get it around the cave and all that. And so we are making good progress. Alright, so we've repositioned the floor area of the what will be the cave. I'm going to put the walls around it. Since it is still a bit of on a slope, I want to kind of act as a retaining wall, and I've kind of tried to level this whole area out a little bit. This is a little lower than the back is, but what mainly needs to happen is that this area here needs to be level, and then I'm going to kind of build the wall up on this side using all these retaining bricks like I used before, and hopefully that will get to the point where it'll hold up. I do notice that in the year or so since I built the original cave, that the retaining bricks had leaned a little bit, so I want to do a better job compacting the soil under that so that doesn't happen again. A little more time has passed by now. I've got the walls in. They're basically in there and nice and flat. I did a little something different this time that I didn't do last time. That is, I filled up the cavities in the cinder blocks with dirt. I noticed when I pulled it out, took the thing apart initially, there was like colonies of cockroaches that had taken up and living in there, and I don't want any of that. So we're going to prevent that from happening. That should actually provide a little bit more insulation too for the cave. So it's coming along well. I'm going to put the roof on it. We're going to wrap it in plastic to keep it waterproof, and then we're going to bury this thing up again. I think we're going to be done. A little bit more time has passed by now. I've got the roof on. I've put basically just a heavy-duty plastic trash bag over the top, which we're going to set soil on, and that will kind of keep the interior of the cave waterproof. It's the same idea I used before, and I'm just basically redoing the same idea again. I've also put the back perimeter wall on, and now I'm going to start filling this thing up with dirt and building up the retaining wall on the side as we go. So I think this thing's pretty much back together now. I got to do a little cleanup out here. I kind of built up the ramp a little bit going in there. It was kind of a 2-inch step up, but kind of built that up so there's a little ramp going in there. This should hold out a lot better because the sprinkler head is over here. I may actually end up raising that sprinkler head up a little bit so they can get up over this thing. I also want to put a couple more bags of soil in here because this will kind of compress down in the weeks and months that follow, and if I don't do it now, I'll have to do it later. But if we can get to the point where we get some regular watering happening in this location here, I think that anything that we put on there, whether it's just something that naturally takes over here or something I intentionally plant in there, I think it'll do a lot better, and hopefully Flash will like this a little bit better when she doesn't get her feet wet at night. So I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night. Alright, it's a couple days later, and Flash gave me a little bit of a scare regarding this whole reconstruction of her cave. I've always known that Flash was a bit of an escape artist, and if I left the gate open for even a minute or two, she'd be out of the gate and heading on down the street. It happened a couple times in California where I left the gate open and she got out. The first time I was actually just working in the garage one day, and I heard a car stop by and say, "There's a tortoise in the middle of the street." I said, "Oh, that's got to be Flash." Another time she actually got out of the yard, went all the way down to the end of the block, found a cul-de-sac, and went to the end of the cul-de-sac and basically started chilling in somebody's front yard. And I didn't even realize she was gone until those people left a sign up around the community saying that they had found a tortoise. And I figured, well, I wonder if that's Flash. Like, there couldn't be that many tortoises in the community. So I went looking for her, and I couldn't find her. So I thought, oh yeah, maybe she got out again, and took off and ended up in the neighbor's yard. Well, it turned out she did, and she hung out with them for a few days until I was able to retrieve her, and she was fine. But I've ever since then been ever aware that she can get away very, very easily, and if I leave the gate open for even a minute, she'll be gone. And so I tried to make it a point when I was working with her, working with the cave, to make sure that I left the gate closed at all times. If I needed to go go through the gate, I opened the gate and I closed it behind me. Now, at one point, I left the gate open for about 1 minute. It didn't seem like it was long enough to be a problem, and so I didn't really think that much of it. But later that night, after I finished doing the cave, I went out and looked for her, because I like to just find her every night and make sure she's okay. And because I'm still a little paranoid she's going to either find some way out of the yard, that I don't know, or find her way into some sort of a situation that could be dangerous for her. Well, I couldn't find her that night, and I was really concerned about it, but I figured, okay, well, she maybe still knows a few places in the yard that she can hide that I don't know about yet, because while she's only lived here for about 6 months, she knows this backyard probably way better than I do, because she's spent a lot more time out here than I have. So I didn't really worry about it too much. I figured, okay, I'll look the next night, and hopefully she'll be in one of her boxes. Well, came home the next night, she wasn't in one of her boxes, and I couldn't find her again. And I was very, very concerned about it, that maybe she'd gotten out. And I went to bed that night and just kind of rolled around for a few hours. And at one point I got up and said, I'm going to go out and look again. And I went out in the backyard looking for her, and I found her almost immediately. Let me show you where she was. So it turns out she'd found her way over into this part of the yard. Now, it isn't uncommon for her to sleep in here, and the vegetation is kind of getting to the point now where it's thick enough that, you know, there's all sorts of places for her to hide in here. Well, I considered that and looked around in here, but didn't see her when I was looking for her those 2 nights. And it turns out she was in here, and she just found some of these leaves here and buried herself under the leaves, and I didn't even see her. So yeah, this is her new hiding place here. She was just hiding right here. She covered herself up with the leaves, and when I came out at like midnight that night, yeah, that's where she was. So at that point I picked her up, brought her back to brought her back to her cave, and since then there's not been a problem. So yeah, that was just kind of a funny story I wanted to share with you.